All right, my name is Louie,
I'm Dan.
and this is Dead Man Walking.
We observe Hollywood like the train wreck it is. You just can't look away, but it's horrible.
Train joke.
Choo-choo!
All right, so this evening we watched 1517 to Paris, and I'm a little bit
Is
embarrassed.
that what it was? I thought it was 12:13.
For the longest time, I thought it was 1317. I needed to use Google to figure out exactly what it was called. Using the name of the train was a poor idea, but that's neither here nor there.
I had to keep referencing my ticket stub.
Honestly, I was looking forward to it because it's a Clint Eastwood movie, and I like Clint Eastwood, but this was just one of those movies that had a handful of really great things going for it, and a handful of really crappy things going for it. And that awkward, underwhelming tug of war that follows, you get this Frankenstein's monster of a mess. Like, whether it's good or bad literally depends on which 10-minute segment of the movie you're watching.
Kinda. I suppose so. I mean, I can't really just judge a movie by a 10-minute segment like that, but you can definitely say that certain 10 minutes segments are better than others.
It had its ups and downs, which is surprising for a train movie.
It was not very steady.
Okay, so for the uninitiated, we can't really slap a spoiler warning on this because it's based on an amazing true story that actually is pretty amazing, and it was all over the news a couple years ago.
The event itself was amazing. The majority of this movie isn't really about that event.
So the event, basically, you have these, three random American dudes backpacking across Europe, the bunch of wastrels they are. Two of them are in the army. We have no idea what the third guy is doing. They never mention it.
Really wish we could find
And
out.
they literally just happen to be on the same train as some terrorist nutbag. And as the terrorist nutbag tries to shoot the place up, they take him down with extreme prejudice. And it's actually a really cool story. And so this movie was basically Clint Eastwood trying to figure out how to take a 10-minute period of time and drag it out into an hour and a half.
Which he's done successfully before with Sully.
Yeah.
Now, granted, there was a lot more events surrounding that movie, around that event itself. That movie stayed very grounded in the events of that train crash landing in the
Plane.
The plane. Not
Trains
the train.
have a hard time crash landing.
Wow, I'm back on the train again.
You really have to get them up to speed, launch them up a ramp or something.
The plane that landed
Which,
in
to be honest,
the river.
The way Amtrak is going, we might be able to see that pretty soon.
The plane that landed in the river.
Amtrak, they're 0-3, ladies and gentlemen.
I can't keep going with this. Okay.
All right, so getting back on track a little
Sully
bit.
had Tom Hanks in it. This one did not have Tom Hanks, nor anybody that you're really going to recognize, except from I don't know.
Basically, he tried to fill out, instead of stretching out the period of time, he basically created a backstory. It was inspired by the book that these three guys wrote, and it was describing what they believe prepared them in life to take down a terrorist, which is cool on paper. And I feel like it should have worked. But the reason this film is making waves is that Clint Eastwood made the bold decision to cast these three gentlemen in his movie as themselves. He's done this before, but not as lead characters.
When has he done this before?
Well, sorry, taking non-actors and putting them into a movie.
Okay.
Like Gran Torino.
We've seen that happen in plenty other films,
But not
with
as the lead.
success. I mean, one of the most iconic drill sergeant characters, probably the only iconic drill sergeant character, was a real drill instructor. They're not called drill sergeants in the Marines, but drill instructor. From Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah.
I don't remember the guy's name.
Arlie Ermey.
He reprised the role of Army Man actually in Toy Story. I didn't realize this. He was the voice of the Army Man.
But here's the thing, it's a general rule of thumb when making a movie based on real life events, you never have the person play themselves because real people are ugly. Have you ever seen Goodfellas? The guy that's meant to be Ray Liotta's character, in real life, he doesn't look like a mafioso. He looks like a used furniture salesman. The guy just looks like a dumpy human being from New Jersey. And that's why they didn't put him in the movie. But that wasn't the problem here. These guys actually looked like action stars. Their names were Stone, Sadler, and Scarlatos.
I mean, you can chalk it up to like military physique or just very good makeup artists.
Well, even appearance-wise, it's like Sadler and Scarlatos could have been Abercrombie models, and Stone, that dude could probably split blocks of granite with his chin. These men looked the part. They were clearly ready for the part. And then, for some unknown, ungodly reason, Clint Eastwood made the decision, when it came to acting lessons, he was like, nah, let's not.
Well, do we know the story on that?
Well, even if they did get them some acting lessons, they clearly did not get these guys.
Okay, how much did you know about this, the event, the movie, before going into it? Because I vaguely heard of the event before on the news.
I knew a lot about the event.
I didn't know that many details about the event before the movie, and I did not know about this movie until about a week ago.
The event's pretty cut and dry. These guys were on a train. A Muslim terrorist snuck into the bathroom with a backpack, came out without a shirt on, and an AK-47 and like 300 rounds of ammunition. And Stone decided to take this guy down. The terrorist goes to shoot him, and the gun jams. It's like a 1 in a million chance. And so they take him to the ground. He starts cutting people with a knife, and eventually they just beat this guy into unconsciousness, and the train is saved. So it's a cool story. It's begging for an action movie.
That scene really does live up. Like the build up to it, rocky throughout the film, it worked to the point where that final scene was very good. I don't have any complaints about it.
Again, like they had the look, they had the heart, they had the story, but Clint Eastwood never gave them any flippin' acting lessons.
All right, why don't we jump into our reviews? So we did something a little different this time. We wrote out our first impression review under a time limit, and do you want to start?
Well, my first impression review is that you take an excellent story, a lot of potential, you hook it up to guys who look like the part but have zero acting skill, and then you hitch it to a screenplay that's just an absolute hot mess. You get a film that's just packed with potential, but instead of triumphantly crossing the finish line, it just kind of collapses halfway around the track, dry heaving in the soccer field like I did back in high school. It was a cringy missed opportunity, and it kind of makes me mad because it was such a cool story. But there was just so much cringe. I was digging my hands into the arms of the seat for large portions of the movie.
I think we both were.
What did you think?
Clint Eastwood directs another film about an event that only lasted moments, with a running time of at least half an hour, and while miraculously not boring me to death. This movie wasn't boring. Going into American Sniper and Sully, I thought the same thing. Wow, it's a film about real life, directed by an old guy.
He's a great director.
But in my head, before I saw these movies, I was like, okay, prepare for boredom. Like, this can't be good. Not that it couldn't be good, it's just that it was bound to be boring. And to my surprise, the fact that both these movies are not boring to me, but instead incredibly compelling, and that's with my attention span, which I describe as pretty close to a squirrel crossed with a goldfish, are why I have very mad respect for the man's directing chops.
That is deeply insulting to both squirrels and goldfish anywhere. The fact is, Dan has no attention span whatsoever. You snap your fingers too fast and he'll forget what you're talking about.
It's true, though. Wait, what? What? Oh, shoot, we're doing a podcast. When I found out about a week ago that Clint Eastwood was made another movie and was to be released soon, Christmas came in February. I was like, yes, this guy can tell great stories.
And then you found out that Christmas was a hand-knit grandma sweater.
To my dismay, signs were pointing to something less than promising prior to going into it. 15/7 to Paris, aka the film whose name I will never be able to pull from memory, is about a book based on the probably true story about the upbringing of 3 young boys, their struggles through growing up in very Christian homes, their strange fascinations with all things war, random talks about a greater purpose, a long trip in Europe, awkward encounters with women, and then finally the genuinely true event of them all stopping a terrorist on a train. Keeping up? I don't care. The train has already left the station. Ready for the best part? Choo choo, here it comes. The actors who play the role of 3 brothers are the men themselves.
Choo choo, hear it. Train jokes.
Train joke. It's experimental. I'll give it that. If it sounds like Act of Valor again, that's where you're wrong, actually.
There's actually a plot.
Yeah.
Active Valor was literally just an hour of Special Forces, like a cameraman following Special Forces guy in the jungle.
Correct. And the actors worked for that just because you were watching Navy SEALs do what they do.
I never knew an action movie could be so boring.
It was actually not Special Forces, it was Navy SEAls. I didn't think it was that boring.
I thought the Navy SEAls were considered Special Forces.
No. Special Forces is an Army thing, I think.
Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, please angrily tell us that we're wrong. We know you will. Maybe.
All right, so again, we don't really have any spoilers, but we do have our decisions on what was good, what was bad, and what was downright ugly. Dan, what was good about this movie?
Thumbs down. Kill him.
Oddly enough, having the actors just kind of having the real life people just kind of recall off the cuff the things that they said, like the little playful banter was actually well done.
I thought this was Clint Eastwood's funniest movie. Definitely for some reasons unintended, but it was kind of the funniest. I don't know. It made me laugh. His other movies aren't funny. It's not actually that funny of a movie. It just has
his
funny
casual
moments.
roasting racism in Gran Torino was also pretty funny.
Okay, that's true. Maybe that was funnier.
For me, the good was literally the last 20 minutes of the film. Like, especially everything building up to the scene, the takedown was just really, really well done. The visceral realism, the artful blend of film and newsreel footage directly afterwards. Eastwood's a phenomenal director, and once you hit the climax of the film, it actually starts to feel like, wow, I enjoy this movie. But the problem is you have to suffer, and I mean suffer, through at least the first 45 minutes, which is just hot garbage.
Does that get into your bad?
Before he actually starts to build momentum. Well, the bad is why I think it was hot garbage.
Okay, go ahead.
The script. It was absolutely the script. And I blame the script over the lack of acting lessons. Because here's the thing. Good lines can help compensate for weak actors, and vice versa. Like a strong actor can compensate for a weak script. But even though Clint Eastwood didn't write the screenplay, he knew that he was going to be working with weak actors at best, because he was the one who was like, hey, let's put these guys in the movie. And so the screenplay was going to have to carry them. So what does he do? He literally hands the screenplay, like the screenplay writing authority, to his studio secretary to write. Some lady named Dorothy. And I'm not dumping on the profession, but her credits up until this point are literally production assistant, studio secretary said, here, write the screenplay for my next movie. And we get a whole bunch of horrific zingers like, my God is bigger than your pills. I'm not putting my kid on ADHD medication. Like, it was just zero functional experience prior to this movie, and it is painfully obvious.
Yeah, that whole, like, medicate your children, my God, and then her response being, my God is better than you, or whatever.
Eastwood, you're a good director. You gotta pick a better screenwriter.
That's my bad. Like, I'll say this for both sides of the spectrum, and this is me, like, holding to that, because far left preachy, I hate it. Far right preachy, which is kind of what this is. Maybe not far, but definitely preachy. It's too heavy-handed. The story is worse for it. It's just harder to take in.
Because even if you're lifting the lines right out of the book, you can do it in a way that doesn't sound that dumb. Because a screenplay isn't just about the lines, it's also about how they're delivered, the environment they're delivered in.
The point of this movie was to feel genuine. And there are parts of it that do feel very genuine. Almost too genuine. Like, awkwardly so. And so to have these characters, like those teachers, come out and be this extreme example of, like, horrible authority figures without making them feel like organic, natural characters.
I don't know, that's how I remembered high school, but that's just me.
It's still an extreme example. Like, you remember things in extremes.
And, like, yeah, like, the genuine moments, though, you're right. It's when the three guys are reenacting their times in Europe. You can see them reliving it. Then again, like, that playful banter comes out. They're enjoying their moments before the world's about to go nuts.
Oh, it felt like Mr. Eastwood said, here, enjoy another vacation in Europe, and then filmed it. And so, yeah, of course they're going to have a good time.
And honestly, if he'd kept it there, like, without the horrendously awful buildup, I don't know where he got those child actors, but they were terrible.
Oh my gosh, so...
The movie It, like the new one, proves you can have good child actors. They're out there.
It and Stranger Things ruined me, apparently, because... Now I just feel like if you can't... if you can't get there, I don't know, you shouldn't even try.
First half of the movie was like watching a school play
So you go from these
with really high production value
to these annoying child actors who go from like that really cheesy, like rambunctious, rowdy kid banter.
want to do the war.
Yeah, they go from that to like this really deep and heartfelt like prayer. Where, like he's kneeling down. Like, do you remember the words of that? Like, it's something that no child would say. And I think both of us were like cringing in our seats.
It kind of reminded me of those like woke child statuses on Twitter. It's like my kid saw a picture of Glamour magazine in the supermarket and just said, I don't think women should be objectified for their bodies that way. It's like, ma'am, your child is 4. They don't know what the word objectify means. They were looking at Hershey Kisses.
Now, once again, that awkward prayer, like when that happened, it did not feel right at all. Mm-mm. But it served a purpose at the end of the movie, and that's what's weird to me, is that...
It was very ham-fisted.
It was kind of... You remember the movie Signs? Remember how, like, all the parts came together at the end of Signs? It was like everything has a purpose, and that was the theme.
But Signs had a delicate touch. This film had all the touch of getting a colonoscopy with a power drill. It just wasn't there.
Correct. I'm just saying... That theme was there. I don't know. And
instead of being led to the conclusion, it kind of like it hit you like a train. Train joke.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lewis is your conductor, and I am leaving the station.
All right. So what was the ugliest thing about this movie?
The ugly. You Americans don't always have to be the heroes. Please continue as we go on our little bike tour.
The most insufferable tour guide in the history of man. But now they think about it, that's pretty much every tour
I didn't
guide.
know you could, was he whistling or humming something in German?
Well, he was humming the song from the producers.
Oh.
He was literally driving away going, it's springtime for it. I was just like, wow, really?
Yeah, that's what I got.
For me, when it comes to ugly stuff, I want to say that it was the sudden explosion of the graphic, realistic violence in like that last 10 minutes. Because the whole movie up to that, like you get nothing, and all of a sudden, bam! It's like people getting shot. The guy's like sticking his fingers in a neck wound. You see his like thumb get slashed. But
I was surprised after the movie that it's still PG-13.
Well, here's the thing. The fact is, the thing I really thought was ugly. There's this one chick you see when they visit the nightclub in Germany who had like this massive horse mane hairdo. And it's just completely ridiculous. Like, it outstrips all the graphic violence. There needs to be a special rating just for this woman's hair. Because it wasn't like a ponytail or just like a regular, like, slick down mohawk. We're talking like a massive Viking blowout.
Mr. Eastwood, we declined your PG-13 request. We got to bump this up to R.
All I'm saying,
creepy hair.
This lady's hair was glorious and terrible. Kind of like this movie.
They're in like a techno club?
Those, like, the club, that's very European.
Oh, I know. It's
and
very
this
German.
Hair, very European.
It's very German. So that to me just kind of added to the genuineness of it, as awkward as it was to watch. Because believe me, even the better parts of the movie still were kind of...
I'm just saying, for me, once again, the ugly category that wins out is the weird background randomness. Like the milking scene in The Last Jedi.
Oh my god. No, we're not... Even though I want to rename the ugly to just The Last Jedi. The good, the bad, and The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi is still, like, just the gold standard for dumb storytelling.
Well, final verdict.
Final verdict.
My personal opinion when it comes to this movie, it was a bold attempt. It was unusual. It was a cool idea, but just read the book and put this film on a train out of town with a one-way ticket. Train joke.
I don't want to be that dismissive of it. It was experimental. It was a bold attempt, and it had major glaring flaws. But I do not regret watching this movie.
And on the upside, we might see more movies in the future with more realistic characters potentially portraying themselves. Hopefully with better acting coaches.
When? I don't think we ever will. I give this movie a 5 out of 10.
I give it a 3 out of 5. Figure that one out. All right.
That's higher than mine.
Moving forward.
Looking forward.
Wait, are we moving forward or are we looking forward?
I'm looking
Are we
forward
riding a train forward?
to none of the trailers we saw. Oh, wait, no, except for the one that was definitely making you cringe.
Okay, well, first,
Alita Battle Angel. Starring Academy Award winner Christoph Waltz. He can do no wrong. Except for those movies he did wrong in.
Ghost in the Shell. Sorry we messed it up last time. Here it is again.
Yeah, it's definitely based on an anime.
Skyscraper. It's like Die Hard, but taller.
And The Rock doesn't have a leg. He's got a fake one.
And last but not least, the unholy abomination unto God, known as Romeo and Juliet, is not only getting a sequel, but it actually looks worse than the original by an order of magnitude. Sherlock Gnomes. It's coming out in late March. Just hide in your homes. That is when the end will come.
Do you have a friend that you know will definitely watch this movie? That like goes to see all of those terrible kids movies?
Yes. My friend's wife in college, she was his fiancée at the time, and she dragged us out to see the first one. It was horrible, and I still wake up screaming some nights because of it.
I have a very, very close friend that was trying to get me to watch Space Chimps and Hop, and tried telling me after he saw both of them that they were good.
I actually have seen Space Chimps. It was not good. On a more serious note, coming up this weekend, Black Panther is coming to theaters, which is making so many waves. And I'll be honest, full disclosure, I do not like the character of Black Panther. I think it's an exercise in wish fulfillment. But I sincerely hope that this movie is going to live up to all the hype that I know it's going to get. I know it's going to get an absurdly high Rotten Tomatoes score, whether or not it's good or bad. And so I hope that it's good.
I think you should rewatch Civil War and because you had serious hate in your heart for Black Panther.
He was barely a character. He shows up in about the same capacity that Spider-Man does.
There's enough people that agree with me that, like Spider-Man, when he shows up, it elevates the movie.
Dan, back in 1914, enough people in Russia agreed that communism was the solution to their problems. Look how that turned out. Democracy is not always right.
This is why I can't make points against you.
On a more important note, the Aardman Classic, even though it hasn't come out yet, I know it's going to be a classic. Early Man is hitting theaters the same day. That's what I'm looking forward to.
I can't argue with that
It's been
logic.
too long since another Aardman movie, and I am way too excited. More excited than I should be.
Happens at the same time as Black Panther, and we are seriously having a hard time deciding between that and Black Panther.
Quite frankly, you guys might get both of those movies reviewed in the same podcast, which is going to be extremely confusing for everyone involved.
Oh man, we should just go back and forth. Talk about both of them at the same time, not back to back.
On a more serious note, we also saw the possibly terrible resurrection of Tomb Raider. I'm not sure. There was a trailer for it. I forgot they were making this movie. And I don't know.
I still hold that the Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider movies were the best video game adaptations because they pretty much nailed everything. They were weird movies about raiding tombs. She had really big boobs, and she used two guns in ways that you shouldn't be able to.
So
just like the video games.
This is a clean podcast, sir.
Okay, look.
To the family audiences out there, I apologize. My co-host is a horrible lech. He's a bad person. He has bad life philosophies.
I'm sorry. Remember that attention span of a goldfish? I didn't
and
hear
he
that
has
last
bad
part.
hygiene.
So this new movie is based on the recently resurrected Tomb Raider, the reimagined, the one that does not have odd proportions. And
for anyone who doesn't know or doesn't care, Square Enix basically rebooted the franchise about 5 years ago.
It's always been owned by Square Enix.
Okay, well, they rebooted their own franchise about 5 years ago with a completely different setup, completely different main character. Kind of took it back to when she was younger.
Hold on. It's made by the same developer, but they did reimagine the character completely. They wanted the focus to be, on her eyes and her face rather than the rest of her, which is what the movie or the games were previously. I'm not shying away from this. This was always a big part of Tomb Raider, dude. The other part was the fact that she could do a side flip while shooting two pistols at once. That's been gone. All right, there's no more of the crazy action sequences. They make it very dark and gritty. They were M-rated instead the other ones were T-rated. She dies in gruesome ways. This movie is kind of going with that feel. And based on the trailer, I can't say whether or not this is going to be a poor adaptation of that. I am cautiously optimistic. But I still kind of miss the weirdness. I don't miss the weird bodily proportions. I miss just the absurdity that was Tomb Raider. That's what I have to say about that.
Do you have any more cleavage jokes to get out of your system?
I don't have any more. I didn't make any. All I said was she had odd proportions.
That weekend, I actually plan on going to see 7 Days in Entebbe. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Basically, that's the famous hostage crisis happened back in the 70s, I think, where a bunch of revolutionaries of Palestinian ties hijacked a passenger liner, forced it down in an African country, and were threatening to kill everyone on board unless their demands were met by Israel. And Israel responded by sending in a team of commandos, an extremely daring, long-distance raid.
The trailer said this was from the director of Sicario.
So
that has also...
It's got a good directing pedigree. The story itself is just, it's almost unbelievable. And if it wasn't for the fact that it was based on a true story, people would be like, no, this wouldn't be possible. I'm looking forward to that because that has been begging to be made into a movie with a modern budget for a long time.
That'll be very refreshing after the one we just saw.
Either way, if they're terrible, we'll let you know. Watching the crappy movies so you don't have to. This is Dead Man Walking.
Or you can watch them and disagree. This is still Dead Man Walking. I've been Dan.
Train joke!
Shut up, Lewis. This has been your last stop.